Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today, Saturday, January 8th of 2022, to talk about something that we've talked about before and obviously need to speak about again. And no, the headline is not incorrect. We want to see the U.S. women's soccer team lose. We think they deserve it. We think it's well beyond time that they lose, and we'll explain why. As those who just read headlines are busy typing in comments of hate, we'll go into exactly what we're talking about in just one moment. First, we want you to know, though, that if this is the first time that you're seeing our channel and joining our audience, we want to thank you and we welcome you. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary, and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream on all social media that the internet overlords will allow. We reach out to you to hear your tweets, your texts, your chats, and your phone calls from anywhere in the world to tell us what you think about the issues that are affecting us all. We do that because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to free speech. It is unalienable. No matter what your government may think, no matter what the internet overlords may think, we believe in your right to be able to speak and to tell us what you think. And so we hope you will join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and tell us what's going on. With that said, let's get back to the U.S. women's soccer team. It's a subject that we've handled and talked about before on this channel. Now, let's make something very clear right up front. The U.S. women's soccer team is propaganda. They are a unit of propaganda, much in the same way that the NBA playing in the Olympics is propaganda. It is about the United States standing up and saying, we are the greatest nation in the world. We are so great that our women can play in a game and beat the rest of the world. The U.S. women's national team was created because the U.S. men's national team can't win at a sport. We dominate almost all sports in the world, but we do not dominate in soccer. And soccer is the #1 sport in the world. That is a fact. And we, the United States, lose consistently. We're not considered a real challenger. That being said, the United States needed a way to prop itself up, to look at this sport and to be able to say, hey, we're great at this because we're a great nation. Well, that's why about 1988, the United States government put forward a U.S. women's national team. That because there are so few nations that have women's soccer teams, whether because of religious restrictions or political restrictions or the lack of interest throughout the world, there are very few teams. And especially in 1988, the U.S. was one of the leaders. So we put together a team so that we could beat the world. That's called propaganda. And we did it successfully. Not that most Americans cared, because most Americans don't care about soccer. And most of the world didn't care because women don't play soccer for most of the nations of the world, even though most of the world has a men's soccer team. Okay, that's fine. And so the U.S. women's team grew. Not that it had a huge base of fans, but it grew. And women made extreme amounts of money as compared to virtually everywhere else in the world and compared to virtually every other career that women could have around the world. It's all fine. But once we got into the 2000s, things started to change, especially around 2010. The increase of social justice warriors from our colleges, we started seeing this influx of individuals who wanted to use the soapbox that they were provided, the wealth that they were given, to be able to promote their political ideology in sports and in entertainment. That came to a head in 2019 when the U.S. women's soccer team, with their star, Meghan Rapinoe, won the the World Women's Cup. Fantastic. They did that. And they got a lot of attention because they won very well. That's fantastic. and then they dragged the United States flag on the ground, something that teams around the world, no other team in the world, would ever do. It is an act of disrespect, a stunning act of disrespect that no one in the world does, and everyone in the world got to see. In fact, we talked about this in July of 2019 when we spoke about it, as you can see. So please pay attention. And we're going to start it up right now. There's the video. And I'm going to stop it right here. So the first thing you'll see, the flag is being dragged on the ground. That is a fact. We're seeing the flag being dragged on the ground, which is a disrespect, and that is intentional. She is obviously not trying to hold it off of the ground. So that's a fact. Let's go a little further in the video. We now see that stop. She moved it from hand to hand, which means she was very aware that she had the flag in her hands and that the flag was dragging on the ground. That is an intentional action. She knows what she is doing. She then drops the flag. She knows she had it in her hand. She switched hands with it. She knows what she's doing. She drops it. And you can see that video for yourself. But the fact is that Meghan Rapinoe and several members of the U.S. women's team in 2019 decided that they needed to disrespect the flag. They dropped it on the ground, they stepped on it, and they partied because they are better than the United States. It was all about them, and it wasn't about the United States that gave them the opportunity and the wealth to be on that stage internationally. It's just insulting, and we said so. And we've received comments about that video for years, and we expect we will continue to. So we started off with a bias against the U.S. women's national team since 2019. It was only made worse when we saw just a little while after that, as we covered, that the U.S. women's national team, well, some of their members, including Meghan Rapinoe, made a point of doubling down. As you can see here, Meghan Rapinoe smirks, refuses to put her hand over the heart during the national anthem at the World Cup parade. Yeah. She wanted to make sure you understood. She doesn't believe in America, the nation that put her on an international stage. No, it's about politics. It's about pushing her agenda. No, we didn't have a lot of respect for Meghan Rapinoe, and we don't have a lot of respect for the Women's World Cup team. But we have to ask, do they deserve a second chance? Did they deserve to be forgiven? Because that was one game, that was one time, and obviously the world continued to move forward. And in fact, we saw that there was something else that was happening. It was in March of 2021 that we decided to take another look at this story. And we were talking, does the U.S. women's soccer team deserve a second chance? Well, the answer is, well, that actually was resolved. The question of women's pay, of the U.S. women's soccer team pay, that was resolved May 4th of 2020. And they lost. They lost because, in fact, they actually get paid more than the men do on a per game and a cumulative level. You see, the U.S. men's team, they get paid based on performance, both in terms of the audience, the attention on national media, and whether or not their team wins and how far their team gets in the international world soccer rankings. Women's soccer didn't do that, though. They don't get paid on that same basis. They actually had the chance to get paid based on that basis, and they turned it down. They said no, they don't want that option. They wanted a guarantee pay, regardless of whether anyone showed up, whether anyone paid attention or not, because this was the third try. No one had shown up before. No one cared before. So they wanted to make sure they got paid for the performance that they made. Fair enough. But then they argued after the fact, after people actually paid attention, after their league made it to 2 seasons, which no other league, the other 2 iterations beforehand, had ever reached that point, now that they actually had some international fame, some recognition, somewhat of a following, now they wanted more pay. So they sued. And the judge, which happened to be Judge Gary Klausner of the Federal District Court of Los Angeles, pointed out that the women's team actually had earned more, quote, on both a cumulative and an average per game basis, end quote, than the men's team during the time of the lawsuit. Yeah, isn't that interesting? So, in 2021 and 2020, the U.S. women's team, looking for greed, their greed decided we need more money. People are finally paying attention, even if it's for the wrong reason, because they stomped on the U.S. flag, because they're promoting social justice ideology, even though it's because they are champions of the gender identity politics and not because of their sports achievements. Well, it doesn't matter. They deserve more money just because they exist, because they are women, which may or may not exist depending on the left-leaning politics you may be looking at any given moment, which is insulting. And you know what? It's not worthwhile. Not that they have more fans, not because they're outperforming on an international basis, not because the world is interested in women's soccer. It's just because they want more, because they're greedy. And their greed led them to court. And in court, it was conclusively, definitively defined down to the dollar. They make more money on a per game basis. They make more money on an annual basis. They are guaranteed to make money even when the U.S. men's team makes no money. Like in 2020, when we saw that the league was completely shut down, the U.S. men's team made $0. They played 0 games. They made $0. That's their contract. The U.S. women's team got paid 100% of their money because they're guaranteed, which goes to their contract. Again, they're making more than the men. Equal pay would mean that the men need to get paid what the women get, that the men should get the benefits that the women get. And the women's team is saying, well, no, that's not fair. What they want is more, not the same. Even though in court they're saying, well, we want the same. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, except if you're taking this from the point of view about activism, because that's what this is about. They're taking the fact that they are a propaganda tool and they're trying to use it for their ideology. So instead of being a propaganda tool for the United States as a whole and for women in the United States as a whole, they decided to use it for far left progressive ideology. They decided to use it for the social justice movement, along with other athletes like Barry and Wolf, as we covered in July of 2021. They wanted to change their propaganda status. The U.S. women's team is consistently selfish and greedy. They want what they want, and it doesn't matter what everyone else has. It doesn't matter what they agreed to. It doesn't matter what benefits they may be receiving. They want more. That's really insulting and very upsetting. And then today, I saw something that I could not possibly believe. The U.S. women's team is once again back in court. But that's not where the story ends, and that's not why I'm covering it again. This is what social justice politics truly is. This is what the true result of a more democratic socialist ideology is. They're going back to court, suing for the contract that they had in 2017 that they agreed to, that made them more money, that gave them money when the league was completely shut down. And now there's something new. And I want you to understand this because I'm not a lawyer, but I'm going to show you what a lawyer has to say about this. This is Nate the Lawyer. He has his own YouTube channel. He speaks about law and cases, and he's been following this about as long as I have. And I want you to hear what he had to say about this, so that you know This is coming from a lawyer who is an expert in this field.
The women's national team's deal was set to expire December 31st, 2020. This means that the women's national team would lose all of their benefits and guaranteed money. Remember, here it is. So in September 2021, the United States Soccer Federation offered the women and men's team the same contract, equal pay. But we don't have these issues anymore going forward. But a crazy thing happened. The women's national team rejected the equal pay deal just like they did in 2017. We don't want that deal, right? It's not good enough. Alex Morgan says U.S. soccer's offer of equal pay at reduced level is not good enough. Now, why is that? Well, it's because if the women's team is making more than the men's team, equal pay means they make less and the men make more. But that doesn't sell well.
So they had a chance in 2021 to get exactly what they are in court for, equal pay. And they said no. Really? And they're in court. They're going March 2022. They will be in court in front of the Ninth Circuit Court. That doesn't even make sense. But they're going in front of the Ninth Circuit Court, which is a very, very liberal court that, as we have reported before, believes that you don't deserve the Second Amendment. That's how liberal the Ninth Circuit Court is. They don't believe in the Second Amendment. They don't believe in your right to defend yourself outside of your home. That is a fact. We have covered that before. I'm sure it's going to come up, and it should, when given the opportunity in September of 2021, when they said they could have a brand new contract, and that contract would be exactly the same as the men's contract, which would be based on commission, on actual success, which is what the women claim that they should be getting paid more for. They said no. And they kept the contract they have had since 2017 that pays them more than the men. That is abject greed. Because of feminism and social justice, they are women, so they should get more because they exist. Math doesn't lie. Meghan Rapinoe does. They were created as a tool of propaganda for the United States, and they have transformed themselves into a propaganda tool for far-left politics. They're greedy. They're selfish. They have contempt for the very nation that created the opportunity for them to have their wealth and recognition that didn't exist beforehand. And now they want their greed to be rewarded even more. They want their politics to be rewarded even more than it already has been. Yeah, I want to see the U.S. women's national team lose. I want them to lose in court. I want them to lose on the national stage. They don't represent America. They don't represent the American ideals. That's because of politics. That's because of selfishness. This is a team that represents social justice. This is a team that represents progressive politics. And that has really very little place, if any, in the United States. I don't believe they represent anything about America, or, if anything, the very worst aspects of America. You may disagree. You may think it's absolutely phenomenal that they want to have their greed rewarded. You may believe that the fact that they are women means that they should be given more when they claim they want equality, because it's about equity. And equity has nothing to do with equality. The U.S. women's national soccer team proves that. I can't wait until Meghan Rapinoe and the U.S. women's national team in this current iteration disappear. Maybe then I can support the U.S. women's national soccer team. Maybe then I can look forward to seeing them win a women's national or international World Cup. Maybe. And I'll be happy to see them just go away. But what do you think? Do you think we're unfair? Do we think we're harsh? Do you think the hate that we're going to get based on the headline is going to be justified? Whatever you think, we look forward to hearing your comments, and we thank you for taking the time to watch us today. We hope you'll join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in our live stream, where we can talk about things like this, and other things that affect the entire world. Thank you.